Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We come at you 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, but you can always catch the replay. So if you're late, no worries. You just will miss out on some of the chat if that's what you'd like to do. Always like chat participation. When I can bring in chat, I do. When I can't, I don't. But I try to say hi to everybody. So love to have you here. Thanks for being part of my routine. Thanks for letting me be part of your football routine. Few and very important announcements. So again, this show, we do our Sunday live stream start sit. That's every Sunday, 11 a.m. However, this week we do have the Chiefs Dolphins. If it's me, I'm watching the game. I'm not on a start sit stream. If you're here, great. I'll be here. But I'm going to do an extra start sit stream. That will be Saturday at 4 Eastern. So definitely come and get the questions answered then. Then you don't have to worry about the rush on Sunday. And also you can enjoy that Dolphins Chiefs game, which hopefully is an amazing one. Also, if you have Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel 87, I will be on Saturday from 1 to 3 Eastern. And then I will be on Sunday right before, half an hour before the Chiefs Dolphins kicks off. Catch the beginning of that show. We'll go over all the late inactives, so the overnight breaking news. We'll give you a little preview of that Dolphins Chiefs game, but definitely join Alan Soslowski and myself for that show. And outside of that, I think we're in good shape. So Thursday night football. Steelers win this one 20-16. Wow, a super sweat for those that betted. I know I get a lot wrong, of course, but this one I just skin of my teeth, right? I took the Steelers -3. They win by 4, under 37. Some places went to 36.5. It went 36. Rather be lucky than good, right? Brian Upton, welcome. Najee Harris. We'll talk about him in a minute. But anyway, welcome in the house, Brian. So in the game, Kenny Pickett. Look, he came into this game, and I talked about it. He injured his ribs on Sunday, and he couldn't finish the game. And it's a short week game, and he took him off the injury report. There's no way his ribs weren't hurting him. And so I thought they'd have to get the ball out very quickly. And it's not like Kenny Pickett does a lot of damage anyway. Kenny Pickett at 100% is a rugged fantasy option. And playing him at less than 100%. But if you were in a 2-quarterback league and you had to start him, he got you $160 and a touchdown. You could thank George Pickens for not being a second one, because there is no reason a talented NFL receiver doesn't get a second foot dragged in on that touchdown. He just took a long step, just drag the toe down, dude. Hopefully he learns from that and makes that work. But anyway, Pickett doesn't do much. The running game surprisingly got going. But, the more I unearthed this, and I came to this realization like before kickoff, maybe an hour or two before, I was a little more excited about Pittsburgh's running game than I had been earlier in the week. T.R. Tart is an interior lineman for Tennessee, and he really is a great linchpin to their run defense. But I also noticed that when he was in the lineup this year, they haven't been the lights out Tennessee defense. They've lost a lot of infrastructure on their defense over the last couple of years. And Pittsburgh was going to have to lean on the run here. They were going to have to do it. And they run the ball 27 times and they threw 30. So a very balanced attack. And, again, Najee and Jaylen Warren, they both get it done. Not that they get it done every week, especially Najee, he hadn't. But he took advantage. Early 10-yard touchdown run. He got slow for a while. He had a long run in the second half. But remember, and I talked about this last night in the Sirius show because I was on during the game. Great draw there. But Najee is 96th percentile broken tackle rate. Think about that. 96th percentile broken tackle rate. He is an elite running back. He's in a bad situation because when he's on the field, defenses will load the box because they expect a run play. When Jaylen Warren's on the field, they expect a pass play. So teams drop back. So all these people that just box score hunt, they're like, oh, Jaylen Warren is so much better than Najee Harris. Easy. Back off. If they switched roles, Najee Harris would be through the roof against nickel and dime defense, where Jaylen Warren would be facing regular box counts, and Jaylen Warren's not so hot. So he's a fine running back, yes, but it's very situational. But for fantasy, they both have relevance in their own way. They're not high upside guys, of course, but they're floor plays, and there's nothing wrong with floor plays depending on your lineup construction and your league size. So they both did fine though. Jaylen Warren got you by 13 or so, 14, maybe PPR points. Najee, got over 16. So real nice there. So passing game, Deontay Johnson, we talked about this one as well. We thought that because of Kenny Pickett's injury that he'd have to get the ball out quickly. And I thought that would become more of a Deontay Johnson game. In the second week in a row, Johnson has really gone off. 7 for 90 and a touchdown. excellent game for him. The more they have to throw underneath, the better for him. And then George Pickens was the loser here because the same reason. Normally he'll get targeted at some downfield shots, and usually one of those can hit in some way, but that wasn't happening. There was, like I said, the touchdown connection just missed, but 2 catches, -1 yard, and 5 targets. So again, just a very rough day for those that invested in George Pickens. But I said, you have to start him because if he scores the touchdown, he's good enough, right? Then he's like 3 for 7 and a touchdown. Well, that's about 10 PPR points. And it's a great no, but we can't say, oh, well, you can't predict he wasn't going to drag his foot. He didn't. But that said, when I said you play Pickens, I go, well, there's floor here. There is real floor, but you can't sit him because you've seen what he can do. Outside of that, nothing really notable. Connor Hayward continues to play more snaps than Darnell Washington. Connor Hayward gets about 3 targets a game. He's really not fantasy viable. So there's that. Darnell Washington did get a target, but that's rare. He's a blocker. And that's about the end of the story. Titans, on the other hand. So Will Levis, he benefited from not having Minkah Fitzpatrick on the field because if Minkah played in that game, there probably would have been 3 picks because Minkah would have been hawking and giving him windows that thought were there, and he would have closed on them. And not that Minkah would have made the interceptions himself, but it would have made it a lot more challenging for the reads. But that said, the Steelers left a lot open on the perimeter. It was like they understood that Levis wanted to throw deep. And so they basically vacated like the sidelines. They were giving him 15-yard throws. Up to 15 yards was like free and easy. And Levis took advantage of that. And there was even times in the middle. It was like a shell. It was like they were playing up and they were rushing. And the pass rush was very good, but it didn't always get home. And Levis had I think there were 5 guys that had 20-yard catches in this game. And so it was the defense the Steelers played that allowed it to happen. Now Levis gets yardage. Of course, most of that came in the last 2 drives, and they were trying to drive the field and score late. I think maybe it was 3 drives, but he wasn't going to hit 200 yards. But we know this is the nature of games. When you're trailing, you get those late yards. So it worked out. But certainly after the 4-touchdown game, fantasy investors that thought it would be a repeat for Will Levis, you were going to be disappointed. Now going forward on Levis, now there's time, there's tape. There's more tape. I always thought it was too short of a week for Pittsburgh to really do a deep dive on him. They did a cursory look and say, okay, we play a high shell on him, just make him work underneath. And the windows were so open. He took what they gave him. Again, I'm excited for Will Levis. He has a live arm. He seems to be unflappable. I mean, the pressure comes, but it wasn't like he was cowering from it. He stood in long as he could, and some were going to be sacks, but that's the nature of playing at Pittsburgh. Derrick Henry gets it done. One long run helps, and a touchdown run where he was able to kind of dive. His legs were held, and he kind of stretched out his body, got over the goal. So he ends up cashing. Solid fantasy performance for him. We thought the Pittsburgh run defense would be a little bit better because they got Cam Hayward back, but they lost middle linebacker Cole Holcomb to a grisly knee injury. That was the first quarter, I believe. And that was a huge loss because, as much as we say Cam Hayward is an anchor to the run defense, the middle linebacker is super important. And it was a clear drop off with Holcomb out of the game. But again, works for Derrick Henry. We didn't think there'd be a lot of receiving production, though. Henry had 1 sizable catch. It was over 20 yards. Tajay Spears, 4 catches, 4 yards. And we kind of said to fade him because that was one thing. Pittsburgh was very good against receiving backs. And so Tajay Spears, if you played him in a PPR, you got the 4 catches, but you only got 6 points. So but hey, if that's what you wanted, it's good enough, right? DeAndre Hopkins continues to see the vast majority of targets, 11 of the targets, but he caught 4 for 60. Joey Porter, he played pretty well. He was man up on DeAndre Hopkins, and a number of times he walled him off, had good body positioning, very impressive game. And it was like Pittsburgh did not even sell out to stop Hopkins. And I thought the rookie did a very impressive job. So Joey Porter's in the fast track to being, a really big time player in the league. Excited there. Treylon Burks got a couple catches later. He went out with a significant, I don't know what the injury was. They didn't take him to the hospital. They put him in the ambulance, and they end up saying they didn't send him to the hospital. So hopefully he was just significantly shaken up. Look, you fall on your back and your body's flat, and I don't know if his head hit or how much it hit, but it's a jarring blow and it's very painful. So, hopefully that's all it is. But we'll see. He has 11 days till his next game. We don't know what the status of the injury is. Outside of that, Kyle Phillips showed up. He came in last year, and if you're looking him up on your waiver wire next week, the Phillips has one L in it. It's not like two L's like a lot of people named Phillips have. His is a little different. And anyway, he came into the league last year as a slot guy, and he was exposed to be productive. He had a good first game. He goose-egged the second, and then he got hurt, and we didn't see much from him. But this is kind of what we imagine from 4 catches for 68 yards, just working the middle of the field. I don't know how much slot they're going to use. He played 30% of the snaps, and it may, a lot of them they had to do, the way Pittsburgh played defense. But again, Phillips, if you're in a really deep league and, you need roster depth, and it could be a plug-in flex and there's injuries or buys, it'd be boom or bust. And we'd have to study the matchups. You'd have to ask me how to start-sit question on him because there'll be weeks where nah, that's not going to work. But there are other weeks where we'll think the matchup might be nice. But Phillips is a talented slot receiver. We thought that coming into the league that he had a possibility. All right, if you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. Again, appreciate you being here with me today. Remember, we'll be back regular time on Saturday at 11 with John Ryan. Tomorrow, Saturday at 4, the first of 2 start-sit streams. We'll do the regular start-sit stream on Sunday at 11, but I know, again, that Kansas City-Miami game's on. Bottom of the hour, Adam Thompson of Bookie.com is coming in. We're going to go over some gambling propositions for this week's games. Brian Upton, you asked me a question about Jakobi Meyers this week. It's going to be a tough call. The tough call, realistically, is that I don't know what the new coaches have to do. I mean, you got to keep the offense basically that Josh McDaniels had, but now the play caller will be different. But they turned everything over. Now, I think there'll be a breath of fresh air in the Las Vegas locker room. I think it will be. I think they were really frustrated with Josh Daniels' overall running of the team. There had to be a lot of, you could tell the players were pissed. They weren't happy to be there. Well, they're playing the Giants this week. Now, the Giants, here's the thing. Dexter Lawrence, oh my goodness, he has been a crazy source of pressure in the middle of the last few weeks. The Giants, earlier in the season, they were not a good pass rush. They were a team like, nothing. Last few weeks, they have come on. They are bringing a lot of pressure. Now, the Raiders, their offensive tackles hold up well, but the interior can be had, and that's where we're going to see Dexter Lawrence operating here. And so he could crush the pocket and make things really difficult for Aiden O'Connell because I did hear Aiden O'Connell starting this one. Jimmy G's not. That was, I believe I heard. And I got to look now. I don't know why that seems weird all of a sudden, but for what I'm going to look that up again because I knew I've been studying all week and it was that. And now I don't know what was up with Jimmy. He just get benched. Let me just see here. Make sure. Yep. Yeah. He's officially named the starter here. So, Jimmy got benched. Well, yeah, I didn't think that went all the way through, but, O'Connell is going to struggle with reads, but the Giants are not a complicated defense to deal with, and they're going to blitz. They are definitely going to blitz a lot. They're going to bring pressure. So for Jakobi Meyers, it's actually not a bad matchup because with the blitz, we know O'Connell's have to get the ball out quickly. And if the Giants go the route of putting a heavy double or bracket coverage on Devontae Adams, O'Connell might not have a viewable window to throw the ball into. And that could be problematic for the young quarterback because he has Jakobi Meyers, who will see the lesser coverage. I think Jakobi Meyers is a good floor this week. I think you count on him. I think you count on 5 catches for 45 yards. There's upside for more. But I think you definitely count on that. And, the one touchdown O'Connell threw late in the game against the Bears, it went to Jakobi Meyers. So there's that. All right. Let's get to some trending players here. Again, bottom of the hour, Adam Thompson will come in. Quarterback fallers. Overall, for the course of his career, he's not a faller. But right now, C.J. Stroud has to be considered a faller. And there's 2 things. First of all, the NFL is a chess match. Everything goes back and forth. Adjustments on one side, adjustment on the other. Well, Bobby Slowick has his version of the 49ers offense. Well, this is not it completely, but he has his own moves he's made to make that his offense. Well, now there's tape out. There's significant tape out. And defenses start to make their adjustments when they're game planning. And C.J. Stroud falls right in that bucket. It was kind of obvious that, Nico Collins was going to be the alpha receiver. They were going to try to get him open quickly into space. And I think the thing that defense are going to do, they're going to try to put somebody an inside leverage on him. So if he's running his route, they want to put somebody inside, make him go to the outside or fight through the inside because this offense is predicated on getting that alpha, the receiver, the ball in space. And Nico Collins and Stroud may not be at that level where they can work through it mentally, right? So that's going to be, they'll work through it eventually, but it's going to take some time. The rookie quarterback always has things to learn and develop, but there might be like Collins had an 80-yard game 2 games ago, but overall he's been in a lull from where he was earlier in the season, the last 3 games. And so I think he's a floor play, but CJ Stroud, he didn't throw a touchdown last week. He ran one in. It was a great matchup against Carolina, 140 yards passing. It was just a very, very rough fantasy performance. But I think they're playing Tampa this week. They're going to see a lot of blitz. The corners, Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, they're not superstars, but they're very solid. And I just think overall, this is not a good matchup for CJ Stroud. He would have to navigate the blitz, beat the blitz. The offensive line has held up well for him. His pass pro has been good, but he hasn't reached 200 yards in 2 games. And I just think the tendencies are there. So right now in a 1 quarterback league, CJ Stroud would be tough to trust right now. Now, next one, he's on a bye. Brock Purdy. I do want to point out in that game against the Bengals, 1 interception. It was a defensive lineman kind of got into the frame and got his hands up and the ball just kind of stuck. I don't really put that one on Purdy. It's just a weird oddity. They drove the ball. They only scored 17 points in that game. He throws 1 touchdown. He runs for 57 yards. But Purdy has exactly 1 touchdown pass in his last 3 games. And I think some fantasy investors remember last year was like 2+ touchdowns in almost every game. So I think fantasy investors might be getting a little bit worried that Bob's going to fall out. I'm optimistic for Purdy. Look, I talked about it on the Tuesday show. I think maybe it was Monday. 49ers, all teams have injuries, and injuries are no excuse for anything. But the reality for the 49ers is they're a stars and scrubs team. And when you lose 2 of your stars on offense, the rest of the offensive line is a problem. And when you lose Debo, again, you still have some weapons, but again, it really isn't, it doesn't add up. Purdy should get these guys back. My guess is Debo's back after the bye. Trent Williams is back after the bye, their left tackle. My guess is Purdy goes back to throwing 2 touchdowns in most games. So if you need a 2 quarterback league and you might be able to, flip quarterbacks, Purdy would be somebody to target. If you're really hurting a quarterback and you're going the streaming option, Purdy would definitely be a quarterback in 1 quarterback leagues to consider there. But I think the 1 touchdowns over the last 3 games, I think that is not something that's going to be going on as he gets his players back. Also on a bye this week, Trevor Lawrence. I just want to point out, he's very good for NFL purposes, but for fantasy, Travis Etienne's doing the heavy lifting. So there's that. And he's only thrown, Trevor Lawrence, 1 touchdown in each of his last 2 games. He did have a 2-touchdown game 3 games ago, but there haven't been eye-popping numbers. They don't need Trevor Lawrence to be there right now. The defense is playing at a very solid level. And again, ETN is taking care of a lot of business. And so Trevor Lawrence, again, great for NFL, but for fantasy right now, he's not an auto start in 1 quarterback leagues. He would, depending who your other options. Like if you had, let's just say, Lawrence in a neutral matchup and Goff at home, and I know Goff played home and didn't have a great game on Monday, but I would go Goff in a home game against most opponents over Trevor Lawrence in a neutral matchup right now. So again, he might be somebody in the start sit that you start to ask questions about. All right. Remember, you'll be getting actionable advice threads on my X account at Jim Coventry NFL. Please consider giving me a follow there, and I will do all I can to get you some information. Now, here's what I'll be. So yesterday, I posted the first of 4 game breakdown, a very quick game breakdown for fantasy. I go through each major player for fantasy, kind of go through what I expect to see in the game. How I kind of rank the player. It might help you with some start sit, especially if you can't make it to the stream. Part 2 will go up after the show. Part 3 later this afternoon. Part 4 will go up tomorrow. All of the games for the week will be covered in those. And every week on Thursday, before the Thursday game, I do that same type of breakdown for the Thursday night game so you can get set with those. All right. Lex plant some trees. Drop McBride for pitch. You have Kincaid. I would start Kincaid right now. Kincaid has had 2 good games in a row. Cincinnati is garbage against tight ends. They're actually terrible on defense. I know they'll have a game plan for this one, but they have not played well. And the 49ers, again, they were deep in the red zone and turned over a couple times, and it was their fault. It wasn't really the Bengals. And so that said, the Bengals are not a good defense right now. And so I think that there'll be plenty for Kincaid. Like I said, the tight end coverage is poor. I would keep McBride. McBride this week has a bad matchup. But Kyle Pitts, he's just not running enough routes. And his snap share is not high. It doesn't really get over 60%. So it's problematic. McBride's going to be a full-time player. Should get Kyler back next week. You wouldn't want to play McBride this week. Kincaid's a much better play, but use McBride after that. I would keep McBride over Pitts because I think he's going to get volume. I think outside of Rondale Moore, he may be the most reliable receiver they're going to have. And with their offensive line being bad, Kyler Murray's going to need that presence in the middle of the field. And we know when he had Zach Ertz, I mean, I'm not saying that, McBride is a earlier career Zach Ertz. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying that when the pressure's coming and you got to get the ball out, middle of the field is a nice place to go with it. All right, running back fallers, obviously Miles Sanders. So the question is, do you drop him? And I say you got to give it one more week. He had 2 carries last week. He had 18% of the snaps, and we saw Raheem Blackshear. Blackshear played less snaps, but he had more touches. So there's that. But you got to wait one more week. Was Sanders being disciplined for something behind the scenes? Don't know. I assume he was benched. But is Chuba Hubbard really that much better than Sanders that you're going to say, you know what, Chuba, you're the guy. Sanders, you're a bum and you're on the bench. Give it one more week if you can spare the roster spot. And because if Sanders gets back involved, volume is, I say this every show, volume is king in fantasy football. And if Sanders ends up getting some volume eventually, obviously he will have fantasy value because we always need running backs. But like I said, if it's the same this week where he's playing less than 20% of the snaps and he's not seeing touches, well, at that point you have to drop him because it would be like that same thing where you're stashing a player in case the starter gets injured. That would be the only reason you would keep Sanders if he was still benched. Dameon Pierce is next, and he did miss 2 practices this week. I don't know about the Friday. Obviously, we're Friday live right now. He missed Wednesday and Thursday with an injury. Might be trending in the wrong direction, but he was already losing work. The last 2 games, last week he played 43% of the snaps. The prior game, he played 33% of the snaps. Now he's getting carries. He had 12 and 13, but really he's not been 4 yards a carry. He's been closer to 3.5 over the 2 games combined. And he hadn't gotten a target in those last 2 games either. Lex, you're welcome. Thanks, Lex. So Dameon Pierce right now, again, I don't know if he plays this week or not, but he's not the same runner he was last year. Last year, he was taking yards that weren't there. He was making things happen. He showed some explosiveness, and he was a very positive runner last year. In brutal matchups, he didn't do it, play well, but he's not seeing targets. So right now, he's a volume-based flex if he plays, but it's a low upside flex. And he did have a touchdown call back last week, so there's that. But if Singletary is going to play ahead of him, that is a problem. Jaleel McLaughlin also, he may be a drop right now. Now, 2 weeks ago, he gets 5 carries for 45 yards. So we know he has explosive ability. He can make something happen. But he had a catch for 1 yard. So PPR 2 weeks ago, you're looking at less than 6 points, right? So there's that. And then the past week, again, 4 carries, 33 yards, great production, but on 4 carries, 2 catches for 6 yards. So now you're looking again about 6 points, about 6 fantasy points. So you're getting 6 PPR points, 2 straight games. But the problem is he went from 17% of the snaps 2 weeks ago to 11% last week. Why? Because Javonte Williams looks like he has emerged as the guy. His whole short career, when he was healthy, he was always that rotational guy, seeing a little around half the snaps. Well, now they're turning him loose. He had I want to say 27 carries last week, top of my head. And he looks great. Javonte Williams looks like the guy they drafted, and now it looks like they're willing to use him the way they should have the entire time. So that said, Jaleel McLaughlin now with his snap share going down, 6 PPR points. If that's what you need, keep him. He probably still gets 4 to 6 touches a game. So you're probably going to get that. Samaje Perine re-emerged, and he is now seeing a few more snaps than McLaughlin. He hadn't for a couple of weeks. So he really is the number 3, obviously explosive, but really, could he break a long touchdown? Yes. And that's what you're hoping for, because right now it's Javonte Williams' backfield. Raheem Mostert, look, trending down maybe. 46 yards and a touchdown last week, 45 yards. The rushes, 9 and 13. So not heavy volume. We know 3 weeks ago he went off, 3 touchdowns, 132 total yards. But Devon Achane is possibly going to be back after the bye, which is next week. And Mostert, I only say trending down because early in the season, we were seeing wicked performances out of him, just beautiful stuff. And right now, the last couple of games, we're seeing okay. So he's only trending down in that. We thought for a while he was looking like an RB1 because he was so good in that offense. And now he's like, okay, he's very, very good, but he's more of that mid to upper range running back too. Touches are fine. The big plays aren't coming as much as they did. And, he's over 30. And so sometimes you wonder if the season grind is catching up to him a little bit. I think there'll be 2 or 3 more pop games the rest of the way. But again, when Achane comes back, it really changes the equation at backfield. And if they want to keep Mostert healthy, they're expecting a playoff run, I'd imagine. So keeping him healthy might be paramount. Tony Pollard, again, another player. It's fine. Not what you drafted him to be. His rushing yardage has not been great. Another 53 last week. He had that 80-yard game before the bye, but realistically, the numbers have been eye-popping. We hoped, and maybe just as the lead guy, maybe that's just not the way it is. Now, Philly's a tough matchup. Philly's been very good against the run. Now they might be able to get some passing production from Powell. You're clearly starting him, but trending down in that. He really is an RB2 right now. He's not an RB1, and he'll have an occasional week where he goes there, but he hasn't been finding, I believe since week 1, he hasn't found the end zone. So that's problematic. And, but other than that, the offensive line in Dallas, it has regressed. It's still okay. It's still slightly above average run blocking and pass blocking, but it's no longer the elite unit it's been. Right tackle Terrence Steele has struggled, and Tyron Smith, as has been the case for much of a few years, injuries have taken a toll on him. That's problematic. All right. Remember, if you have the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports channel, I will be on Saturday, 1 to 3 Eastern at Mario Puig. I'll be on Sunday, right half an hour before the early morning game kicks off, and that'll be with Alan Soslowski. And remember, 2 start-sit streams this weekend, 1 on Saturday at 4. We'll still do the 11 a.m. show, and then we will do another show as well on Sunday at the usual time, 11 a.m. Eastern. Adam Thompson, welcome in the house. Man, I sweated it last night. I had Pittsburgh -3 in the under. I got 1 by 1 point on the number, 1 point on the total. Whew, nice. Wet off the brow.
Yeah, I went 3-0 on my picks and props as well. I had the Steelers, and yeah, that was shaky. I did not think that was going to come through at halftime.
No,
but they found a way. And my other 2 prop picks, I won by half a yard. With Derrick Henry over 74.5. He had 75. And then DeAndre Hopkins, I had over 50, and he had that by halftime. So that was good. Nice. But yeah, the other 2, it just makes it more special when you got to sweat it out, right?
Now, Adam, there was a point with Derrick Henry before the game. I saw a prop. I can't remember the number. I think it was because he ended up with how many yards rushing? He ended up with I saw 76.5, and I was gonna bet the under on it. And we both, if I had done that, we both would have won. Because you bet the over at 74, but yeah, he ended up at 75. That I just thought it was funny when you said it because I was looking and I remember that number, and I didn't end up playing it, but that would have been hilarious. We both won, but we had different sides of the bet.
And at one point, I think he had 74 yards rushing with like 4 minutes left. And Pittsburgh went down and scored. I'm like, oh no, they're just gonna air it out. And then I don't know, I didn't even see it, and all of a sudden he had a 1 yard run to get him to 75, and that was his last rush of the game.
Oh my gosh, how awesome!
We got lucky.
That? Yeah, better. All right. So we had a great weekend of football, Adam. I am pumped about a number of these games. We're going to break a couple of these down. So the big one is going to be Sunday morning. I'm actually doing an extra start-sit stream this weekend show because I'm not competing with this game. It's Dolphins, Chiefs in Germany. So now when you look at this game, one of the things the Chiefs, A couple of weeks ago, they lost their linebacker, Nick Bolton, to the IR, and he's a really fast linebacker, covers a lot of ground. I think this one, that particular loss, could hurt them a little bit. Miami comes to this game. They're getting some offensive linemen back. Teron Armstead is expected back. Certainly helps them a little bit. But Chiefs coming off a rough loss last week. First time they lost to Denver since the Peyton Manning days. And the Dolphins, they got a couple of weeks ago, they got killed by the Eagles. They're back on track. How are you breaking this game down?
Yeah, it's interesting. Miami, they haven't beaten a team with a winning record since week 3 of last year. They feast on lesser competition, and then we see what happens when they go play the Bills, and similar teams. But I like Miami actually. Getting just 1.5 points. It's not much, but you see what KC did to Denver, and you wonder, is this a trend? A lot of the lowest producing games of Patrick Mahomes' career have been this year, as far as graded rankings through, Pro Football Focus, does their rankings. 5 of his worst 10 games of all time have been this season. So this is less of an anomaly and more of a trend. This is, the receivers just have not, improved the way we thought. Kadarius Toney, who I drafted in every league I was in that I could, single-handedly cost them the first game of the year against the Lions. And it's pretty much been that mantra. If Kelsey's not there for Mahomes to look for, the receivers aren't doing their part. So I think this Miami defense has the speed. Jalen Ramsey's back. I think that's big enough. And I think they can at least hold them down. In Miami, we saw them score 70 on this Broncos defense that the Chiefs just got skunked by. So, I'm not predicting that big of a blowout, but I think they can get it done here. I also like the approach of going to Germany on Tuesday for Miami rather than after Thursday's practice for Kansas City. And the Chiefs players were, they're already salty about going. They're giving up a home game. They don't want to go. Marcus Valdes-Scantling is moaning about it. They're just coming in with kind of a bad attitude about the whole thing. And I think Miami, I think Tyreek Hill, I think they really want this one, just to prove to everybody, including themselves, that they're worth putting in that conversation as far as the AFC's elite.
Adam, I don't think that the Chiefs can deal with the team's speed that the Dolphins have. They do a lot of things well on defense, but their corners are very good, but they're not hyper speed guys. And Tyreek Hill, look, it's narrative. It's a revenge game. And Mike McDaniel's going to make sure he gets the ball here. And I know Tyreek certainly has asked for things, and they run him on these half motions. He's very hard to deal with. And then Jalen Waddle, he gets freed up, and Mostert's speed plays in there. I'm with you on this one. And with the Chiefs, though, the one thing I will say that's positive for the Chiefs. So Miami defensively, they bring good pressure, but the Vic Fangio style has been to limit explosives. So they tend to put a lid on the defense. They move the defenders back. They are prone to passes in the middle of the field. That's what the Chiefs' offense has been the last couple of years. And I don't know if Fangio will make that adjustment. That's going to be a critical point here. But really, the strength of the Chiefs would play into what the Dolphins want to give you. The bigger question is, Jalen Ramsey, will they decide to put Jalen Ramsey on Travis Kelce? Because he's asking, he's in Fangio's ear, and he's saying, let me guard him. I'm going to take him out. And if somebody could, it would be Ramsey. But I am with you on this game. The Dolphins do rate the edge here. In a track meet, I think they have the advantage. And if you don't like betting the game, a teaser leg where you could get the Dolphins from 1.5 and you can go through the 3 into 7 to 7.5. There, if you're nervous, but a teaser like that would be one as well. But definitely with you on that. Any final comments on that game?
Yeah, the Dolphins have struggled to stop tight ends. They're one of the bottom teams. So Kansas City, they have one weapon, and it's their tight end. So I think putting Ramsey on him is a fantastic idea. Why not? Whatever you've done before hasn't worked, and now one of the greatest tight ends ever is coming to town. It's their main weapon. You have this braggadocious, large slot physical corner. Just try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I think Miami's speed is just too much.
Now, another big one, the Cowboys and the Eagles. So last year, these teams played twice. In the first game, there was no Dak Prescott. We got Cooper Rush. And then we had the Eagles in the second game where Jalen Hurts was out. and we got the Gardner Minshew experience. So these two teams haven't been at full strength facing each other in a while. Dak Prescott's had a lot of success against this defense. The Eagles, surprisingly, cornerback play isn't sticky year after year. Slay and Bradbury, their names right now, they are not playing at their accustomed level of performance. They are not playing great football. You can pass on the Eagles if you could slow their pass rush. The Eagles, on the other hand, they have figured out when teams play man against them, half of the passes go to A.J. Brown. That's smart because A.J. Brown is the man killer. But Dallas will give up the run. Leighton Vander Esch's absence in this game could hurt. So we have a lot of advantages for both teams here. What do you see in this game?
Yeah, I think it's whichever quarterback performs at a higher level. Dak Prescott, he's kind of more prone to pounding those lesser pass defenses and struggling against the top defenses. But which Eagles team is in that category? Like, they gave up almost 400 yards to Sam Howell. Nearly lost to him twice, barely beat him both times. Give up 300 plus to Mac Jones. So like you said, they're more name recognition than they are production recognition at this point. We know they can do it, but they haven't really done it to the expectation that I think we all had. And on the other side, the Cowboys ranked number 2 in the NFL in fewest yards allowed to receivers. So they're really good at covering that outside. Jalen Hurts, obviously his two favorite weapons are the two guys, on the outside, especially A.J. Brown. I think they have the personnel to hang. And if Jalen Hurts isn't mobile, if he can't move around, with his ankle injury, that's going to be a problem for Philly. Because if you allow those Cowboys edge guys to get after him, it's just a really good matchup for the Cowboys on both sides, I think. So I like the Cowboys in this one. +3, I like those points. I think both teams are going to have success. I think both teams are going to find it, but +3, I just like that number.
Yeah, and in this game, the matchup I'm really looking forward to seeing as well is this Dallas pass rush against that Philly offensive line, and I wonder how they're going to deploy Micah Parsons this one. By moving him to the, I think against the left tackle is a bigger advantage. Normally that's where you don't want to go, but Lane Johnson's on the right side, and Lane Johnson is enough in the tool belt. We might be able to slow him. I can't wait to watch it. But the Cowboys on the road, big divisional game. Dallas, again, should have offensive success here. They could win this one, whether it's a shootout, whether it's a low-scoring game. This will be a fun one to watch. I'm personally laying off it, but I love your lean on the Cowboys. Getting the points is a big deal here. I think 3 is a good number to get because that one could be a last-second crazy game. Yeah. Oh, now exciting one.
The Eagles, they do have the best record in the NFL, but I think all but one of their wins is by a touchdown or less. So they're not blowing teams out. No. The Cowboys are the complete opposite. They've blown everybody out or gotten blown out in most of their games. They had the inexplicable loss to the Cardinals, but since then they're winning games by an average of almost 4 touchdowns a game. So what Cowboys team, but we saw them play a close game too. They beat the Chargers in a 3-point game.
Right.
So if push comes to shove, they can hang.
One thing I will add about the Eagles and the close wins, this actually goes back to last year. This team could get a lead on others, and then what they do is they go to the run game. They trust their offensive line to maul the other team. They run, they drain the clock, they shorten the game, and then usually the opponent gets a late score. And so the Eagles do not, for betting purposes, do well with a moderate lead because they let those shrink. They end up winning the game, which is all they care about. But yeah, so that even plays more into your idea of the Cowboys winning with the points. So if the Cowboys don't win outright, there's always a good chance they could get a late score to get it inside that window. So good stuff, Adam Thompson. Now, Monday night game, a little less exciting of a game than the first 2 we talked about, but it's a nationally televised game. The Chargers have been abysmal on defense, just whether it's the run, whether it's the pass, whether it's the consistent pressure, none of that's clicking for them. They have some talented players. Joey Bosa doesn't look like the guy he did 3 years ago. He looks like he's on a real descent in his career. That's not going well. And offensively, the loss of Mike Williams has hurt them. Keenan Allen is getting a lot more attention. He hasn't had the boom games without him. Austin Eckler showed signs of life last week. The Jets, whether their run defense, their pass defense, or their pressure, They are one of the best units in the league. They're not the best, but they're up there. And at home, they have been deadly. They basically strangled the Eagles when the Eagles went into New York to play them. How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, they strangled the Eagles, beat them. They held Mahomes and Josh Allen, 2 primetime games. They combined for 3 touchdowns and 5 picks in those games. This defense is for real. They've only allowed over 23 points, I think, once all season. That was to the Cowboys, another really good team. So they've seen a lot of really good offenses against them. They've done really well against a lot of them. And, like you said, there's one weapon. I mean, Austin Eckler's, he's obviously very good out of the backfield, but Keenan Allen is the guy you have to worry about, and the Jets have a shutdown corner that they can put on him. So I don't feel like there's a lot of now the flip side. I actually do like the Jets in this game, getting it's plus 3.5 at home. I like that number. Zach Wilson's playing with a lot of confidence. He's not necessarily throwing lights out or anything like that, but they're doing enough. They're figuring out the formula to success, which is let the defense do its thing. Zach Wilson hasn't thrown a pick in 4 or 5 games, something like that, 100 plus attempts. That's been the difference, game management. And then he made the big play at the end of that Giants game that got him into field goal contention. They ended up winning that game. So they're just finding ways to win. Breece Hall is, looking good now that he's finally healthy. I like what the Jets are doing. They're just kind of hanging around. Plus 3.5. I think that's a really good number because I don't think the Chargers are going to come out, score 31 points. Nope. And win going away. Justin Herbert just doesn't look comfortable. Still with that finger, he's still slinging it, but he doesn't look, he's not stepping in. He doesn't look like that guy that he did last year. And like you said, that defense, if Zach Wilson's going to throw for 280 yards, it's going to be this week on Monday against this defense that hasn't really stopped really anybody. So I think I like the Jets plus 3.5 at home with that defense. I think they can hang.
And getting the ball to Garrett Wilson's been huge, and we've seen it. Garrett Wilson has been productive, not getting the touchdowns, but this is the type of game we see communication breakdowns in that Charger secondary all the time. And if Garrett Wilson catches something underneath as a communication breakdown, he's finding the gap, and he could take something to the house too. So yeah, between, like you said, Breece Hall, the quarterback not making critical errors, and having Garrett Wilson. And look, the odds of the Chargers scoring more than 17 points are very small, I think, in this game. Like you said, the Eagles scored 14, Kansas City scored 20. This offense version right now, and if you're getting 3 points in that low scoring of a game, the Jets could win this one outright. Do you see the Jets winning this one outright or no?
Yeah, I actually I'd sprinkle a little bit on them. I'll have a Monday night full preview coming out. I think it comes out today, but you can check it out on Monday. But Tyler Conklin is another guy to watch out for. If you're looking for a free agent pickup, the Chargers are atrocious at stopping tight ends. And Zach Wilson has been looking at his tight end. He's been very consistent with that 4 to 6 target, 3 to 4 reception range. I think his yardage over under for this week is in the 20s. I think he's gonna hammer that thing.
Yeah, that's a great call because earlier in the season, he had a string of games near 50 yards. So we definitely know that production can be there, and he is a trusted target for sure. Let's do one more. The Commanders and the Patriots. So now the Commanders are down their 2 edge rushers. They trade away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. It doesn't hurt their run defense. I think their run defense is basically those interior guys. They got Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. So the run defense should remain intact. Secondary is not good, but the loss of those 2 edge rushers, that puts them from being a plus pass rush team. My guess is they could get a little bit of interior pressure, but there's not going to be much at all coming from the outsides. That actually gives the Patriots, if they game plan this right, they come in with a pass-heavy approach, even though they have Mac Jones and some receivers we're not excited about. Meanwhile, Sam Howell, somehow in a rematch against Philly, when I thought Philly would make adjustments, like you said, he rolled them. They lost, but he was putting points on the board. Now, Bill Belichick does have film on him, so I'm very interested to see what he decides to do in terms of handling Sam Howell. How are you looking at this game?
Yeah, the Commanders have given up the 2nd most points in the NFL. They've given up the 4th most yards in the NFL. And now you just got rid of you just annihilated your one biggest strength that you could point to. He's edge rushers, and Sweat was decent against the run too, but you're right. But more from a passing standpoint, if you don't get at Mac Jones, he can actually pick you apart. And, no Kendrick Bourne. I like Kendrick Bourne. Devontae Parker's not going to play, I don't think, either. But, I was looking at the Pro Football Focus, top 50 performing receivers based on their analytics. Neither one of those guys is in the top 50. They only have one receiver that's in the top 50, and it's Demario Douglas, who's still playing.
Right.
So I think this might actually be an advantage. Now you can get some younger, other hungrier guys in there who, give them an opportunity and see what happens. And especially if you give Mac Jones time, I think this could be a big game for him. So I actually like the Patriots -3. I love Sam Howell. I think he's got a real future in this league. He has weapons. That's a concern. This might be a high-scoring game. Can the Patriots hang in a high-scoring game? I think we might find out. But I think, the overall vibe of Washington is the season's over. Ron Rivera is probably not going to survive it, and everybody knows it. They just traded away 2 of their top players, and everybody knows it. Management has waved the white flag. It's tough to come in and get ready for a game in that scenario, unless you do an us against the world mentality. But in New England, at Foxborough, I think Belichick is going to have some tricks up his sleeve for young quarterbacks. He usually does. And I think if he can keep Howell from not throwing for 380 plus yards like he has in the past, I think the Patriots can win and cover.
Another thing is I'm gonna have to look as you talk through. You made me think that I think if there's a prop on interceptions for Sam Howell, I would bet 1 for certain. And if I could bet 2, I would bet that. I'm going to take a look at that when we're done, because Belichick, like you said, he is going to throw some funky looks or some funky pressures or some dropout things, and Howell's not going to perceive those. So that could totally be a Belichick thing, but I definitely would like that one as well. But so over on the day, you're going with the Dolphins over the Chiefs, and that they're getting 1.5. Would you take the money line on that one?
Yeah, you could. I took the points plus 1.5 because I think it will be a good game. Patrick Mahomes has just burned me so many times because, pound for pound, I've looked at their roster in the past. I'm like, okay, all they have is Mahomes. What's I can do? Well, that's all that's needed for the Chiefs to win a lot of games. So I'm going to take those points just in case.
And then you took the Cowboys plus the points over the Eagles, and and that one, no money line. You're taking the points, and there's no money line. You're definitely the points only. And then you're going the Jets over the Chargers. They're getting 3, but you would sprinkle money on the money line on that one, correct?
Sprinkle it, but I like it's 3.5. If
3.5.
You can still get it. It has been 3 to 3.5, but 3.5 is it's just too tasty.
Yeah, that 3.5 is perfect. And then the last one, you took the Patriots minus the 3 against the Commanders. Adam, tell everybody where they can find you and your work.
Twitter or X at Bookies Adam and bookies.com/picks. And also Breeders' Cup Classic is on Saturday. I picked every race for Saturday. That'll be coming out later today. You can find that on my feed tomorrow.
He's Adam Thompson, documented winner, my teammate, bookies.com. He works with, we both work for Gambling Group. I'm with RotoWire. But again, Adam, every Friday, don't miss the show. Remember, tune back in. We have an extra start sit stream. We'll have one Saturday, 4 Eastern. We'll have the regular weekend shows as well. For Adam Thompson, I'm Jim Coventry. Good luck in week 9.